All right, it is 3 a.m. and we are in my kitchen because the first thing I did when I got home at 3 a.m. was I had to feed my cat because she doesn't like being left waiting. So I worked a 14-hour day today at my theater that I run, and Barbie has been selling like crazy. I did not get Oppenheimer because one of our closest competitors got it, so I couldn't book it. Um, but that leaves the door open to get the new Ninja Turtles movie, which I'm looking forward to. So I worked my 14-hour day, and then I skedaddled out of my theater to head to another theater to go meet some friends to see Oppenheimer tonight in beautiful 70 millimeter IMAX. So, preamble. I'm not a big Christopher Nolan fan. I respect the hell out of him as an auteur. A lot of times I think he's a little too pretentious for my taste. I really dislike Tenet, and it took me quite a few times to get through Interstellar. Um, Seeing Memento when I was in high school led me to seeing The Following, his film before that. Just like seeing Requiem for a Dream led me to Pi, and it comes to Darren Aronofsky's films. Um, the Batman movies obviously were his kind of breakthrough. I felt that Insomnia was very pedestrian, but that was him working with a studio system. Batman Begins is really the only one that feels like a Batman movie. As much as I dig The Dark Knight, um, it gets to a point where Nolan is starting to kind of smell himself a little bit and starts to kind of be embarrassed of the fact that he's making pop art and things become less Batman-y and he just becomes Tactical Ninja Man. And then Dark Knight Rises, I fucking hate that movie. But The Prestige, I believe, is my favorite of all of his movies. Um, Dunkirk, I know the story. It's a beautifully made movie, but I feel like I'm just observing. I'm not engrossed in a story. Um, the acting was fine. The look is great. It's an extremely well made film, but I'm in no way, shape, or form connected to it. It feels like you're like on an amusement park ride. Um, with that said, Oppenheimer is a fucking masterpiece. You look at movies going back to the beginning of his career, and each time someone adds a new feather to their cap, going to create something broader. In his last few movies, the sound design was so fucking Tenet, like you couldn't even fucking figure out what the fuck was going on half the time because the sound design was just awful. It was muted half the time, and the mix was all off. And I could say that because I'm such a talented, award-winning filmmaker. The sound design in Oppenheimer is so good that it's insane. One of my friends who went tonight is a sound engineer, and we were both just fucking marveling out of how incredible it is. How again, we don't have to tell you the story of who Robert Oppenheimer is. Read a fucking history book. It's actually kind of funny. About 5 years ago, I ran a theater in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and the township was building a brand new library in town. So they closed down the old one and they moved everything to what used to be a bike shop at the end of the street. And I would get to work early and get all my work done. Then I just have time to kind of wander around. I would go into the library and I'd grab some books. I always like to read biographies on people or autobiographies. And I remember grabbing a biography about Einstein, and it was about his time as a patent clerk. And people said I only got it because of the line in Ghostbusters. They might not be wrong. And in that, there is to have some context, there is, passages about Oppenheimer. And it intrigued me because I knew obviously who Oppenheimer was, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, the Enola Gay, the father of the atomic bomb, the American Prometheus. And so I became very interested in that, and I had grabbed a biography on him, just a bit after that, and read into it. And what you think of this person, I didn't know anything about the communist ties. I didn't know anything about Kennedy, about Strauss. It's very interesting, and all his connections to Heisenberg, not Breaking Bad. But so it gave me a whole different sense of this story. So then seeing the movie, I was like, oh wow, There's also a really interesting like 12-hour long podcast I listened to about him as well. I've always been horrified and intrigued by war. World War II, there's so many amazing films and so many amazing books and documentaries and everything. And you think about war in the broad scope of things. America and Russia, Germany, Italy, and Japan. We know the key players. The Trumans and the Eisenhowers and the Hitlers and the Goebbels and the Stalins and Mussolini and all. Who Oppenheimer is. Who the about Fat Man and Little Boy. There's the broad scope things. But when you think about it as a tapestry, and then you see all of the stories that go into it, all these people, all these towns, these missions that you look at Jaws, like the USS Indianapolis is connected to that. It's all these little stories that weave this tapestry, which are so fucking interesting to me, but also horrifying, of man's inhumanity to man. And what we will accept because of nationalism, and this movie really does speak to that quite a bit, where you have a man who essentially stood on the shoulders of giants before him. You have the Curies and whatnot, and the splitting of the atom and everything, and all of those things that would come to this one man who then harnessed the power to be able to destroy humanity. And the way that Cillian Murphy plays the character is this genius who can see the spaces between spaces. He can see how it all fits together, but he's very naive to the world around him. And he plays it with such depth and such complexity, but also at times such innocence. And as the story wears on and you start to see the sheer power of what he is about to unleash, he becomes thinner and heavier. Like there's something going on in his eyes that I didn't expect from him, because he's a great actor. Going back to 28 Days Later, I've been a fan of him as the Scarecrow, Red Eye, one of Wes Craven's films. But I didn't know what to think of him leading a film like this, because when it comes to 28 Days Later, it is very much an ensemble piece. And this one is an incredible ensemble piece as well. There's so many times where actors pop up and you go, oh shit, I didn't know they were in this movie. Robert Downey Jr. is flat out better fucking win the Best Supporting Actor Oscar. And his storyline, which intertwines with Oppenheimer's, is just this other piece of this story of pride and hubris and it's wild. He's so fucking good, and people now are just like, oh, okay, he's Iron Man. Dude's been doing this a long time, and he knows his craft, and when he does, he always brings something new and unique, and he is incredible in this movie. And the way that the non-linear editing works, we're bouncing back between his work at Oppenheimer's work at Los Alamos and the trials that that followed leading up and proceeded with his security clearances. The way that the textures work in the movie, where every line on people's faces are seen when it's in black and white, where we could tell where we are in the story. Again, while Nolan can be very pretentious, this movie literally shows what an incredible filmmaker he is. The 70 millimeter shots as well. It looks like something that like Houston or Ford would have done. It feels like an old Hollywood epic type of film. And again, you have all these amazing actors, and you're going to say, oh, like they pop up. Gary Oldman is in this, and the Pew from Midsummer, and Emily Blunt, and Matt Damon, and Casey Affleck. Everyone comes in and does their part, and they just create this story, which I was so engrossed by, even though there isn't a lot of, if you're going into this going, oh, cool, the atomic bomb, that'll be a lot of action. No, it's 3 hours long. And I never felt the time, because I was so engrossed in the story, and I was watching these actors put on a class, and I'm watching this filmmaker put on a class where his camera is so precise. His acting is so sharp in the frame. The score is fucking incredible. It has this almost molecular quality to it, which sort of reminds me a little bit of when the Flash enters the Speed Force in Snyder's Justice League. There is this molecular quality to the with the score, which works in this idea of Oppenheimer's ability. His mind is a storm. He can see all of these different things in space, and he doesn't quite know how they fit together, and it works together with that there. And the fact that he said he used no CGI is incredible, because there's all these shots of effects of fire and particles, and it reminds me almost, again, like Aronofsky, The Fountain, where they used a lot of footage that was shot under microscopes. And again, going to the sound design, like when the bombs do go off and there is no sound, it reminds me of things like because I opened the fucking cards recently, Attack of the Clones, when the bomb goes off and there is no sound, and then boom, No, man, this movie is an absolute fucking masterpiece in all ways, shapes, and forms. When it ended, I just sat there for a minute like, wow. And granted, I had to sit in the front row of an IMAX theater, because I showed up as the movie was starting and didn't realize at 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday the movie would be sold out. But even straining my neck a little bit, it was worth it. This is a true piece of art. This is a true cinematic experience, which should only be viewed in 70 millimeter in IMAX. They couldn't even put trailers on it because the 70 millimeter is so large it would fall off the platter. I've worked with 70 millimeter in the past, and it's scary because it's a huge frame and a big piece of equipment, and a lot can go wrong. But I take back everything I said about Tenet, because this movie is incredible from fucking soup to nuts, man. It really does just, it's everything amazing that cinema can be, while telling this horrible story about countless lives that were ended, and the one thing I do really respect about the movie is that they don't show you the devastation of what we did to Japan. He's haunted by images of flashes, of skin being burned of the people in front of him, of charred bodies that are in the room with him. We never dwell on the patriotism of what caused Japan to surrender was the idea that they dropped one, they dropped another, and it looks like they could just keep doing this. And there was a Hirohito. Originally was like, well, I want to stay in command, and then America was like, we don't see that happening. I might look like a fucking idiot. I might like garbage movies, but I am fairly well read. I know quite a bit about history. I read as much as I possibly can. I love documentaries of history, of learning why, the story beyond the story that we know. And it's very interesting in this movie when they get to the time post-war, when everyone is basically looking for their pat on the back and their accolades for what was done during the war. Robert Downey Jr.'s character is especially that. He holds up this one moment between Oppenheimer and Einstein, where he's like, well, they were clearly talking about me. It's like, maybe they were talking about like more important things than you. And it's the hubris of this man who wants to create the bomb, and this man who wants to be, and Downey Jr.'s character who wants to be hold a chair for the president. Even when Gary Oldman is in the movie as the president, and Oppenheimer says, like, I have blood on my hands, and the president pulls a handkerchief out of his pocket and like waves it at him, and as he's leaving, he's like, keep that crybaby out of my office. It's these people that everyone was trying to carve out their piece of the win, and their ability now to, in a post-war world, to implement their version of control, their version of what America should be. And Oppenheimer, of course, had ties to the Communist Party, but never really believed in what they believed. He just had left-wing views. We live in a world now where back in the day, the Red Scare was something that the right rallied against. and hate the Russians, better dead than red. But now a lot of our elected right wing people seem to be okay with the Russians and Putin and that. So I don't know. Strange world we're living in. But again, if you get a chance to see this movie, I'm gonna get off my political soapbox now. If you get a chance to see this movie in 70 millimeter, I fucking recommend it. Don't stream it. Don't go to your don't go to my theater to see, well, I don't have it at my theater. But this has to be seen on the biggest screen possible with the best projection quality, with the best sound quality to truly be engrossed in this masterpiece. So yeah, Christopher Nolan, man, Oppenheimer. It is truly a work of genius, a work of cinematic mastery and acting, sound. The girl, again in the weird actors who are in this thing. The fucking the girl who plays Juno's best friend in Juno, who was also Anderson and Judge Dredd in Dredd. She's in it. Like, there's all these actors. I'm like, oh hey, they're in this. No, this was great, man. And I wish I would have seen a little bit earlier. I wish I would have not sat in the front row. And also, King of Prussia Regal. You have all of the things in place, but your light bleed is not very good. There are spots on the sides of the screen where there's too much light, and in dark scenes, light bleeds in too much and kind of makes the darker scenes not as clear to see. So maybe work on that. As little and cheesy as my theater is, we have a perfect throw from our projector to our lights. Because I'm all about, when I sit in a fucking dark movie theater, man, I want to be engrossed in the story. I don't want to be worrying about the lights. I don't want to be worrying about the people around me with their cell phones, which thankfully nobody did. I don't want to be sitting there looking to punch holes in the story. I just want to go somewhere and see something and feel something. And it's weird because I got that from Barbie and Oppenheimer, two movies that couldn't be any more different. But they both brought people to the cinemas this weekend. They both got people talking. And there's something special about that because, fucking movies are my life, man. They pay my bills and they get me out of bed in the morning. Well, that and the cat. So, it's magical when you can, when the lights go down and you could be taken somewhere and experience something and learn the nuance in a story that you already thought you knew. So yeah, I don't know. I'll stop rambling now. Oppenheimer, I can't recommend it enough. It is truly incredible, and it's going to take home so many fucking awards this year. But then again, I also think that Ryan Gosling deserves an Oscar for playing Ken. So what the fuck do I know?